our days, a simple cough could earn us a chorus of concern or even a nursery rhyme. I have a little cough, sir, in my little chest, sir, and every time I cough, sir, it gives a little pain, sir. Cough, sir. There it goes again, sir. Remember that nursery rhyme? Well, coughing in public, especially persistently, can be embarrassing. Often, our first instinct is self-medication, picking up lozenges, cough syrup, or even herbal remedies. But as a popular local advert once said, some kind cough, na foolish cough. Why? Because it could be tuberculosis, one of the deadliest infectious diseases that primarily affect the lungs. While TB is a global concern, Nigeria carries a significant burden. According to the National Tuberculosis and Leprosy Control Programme, an estimated 452,000 cases were recorded in 2020 alone, and every day, lives are lost to TB. Yet there is hope. TB is curable and the world is racing toward the 2030 target to end the disease. But how realistic is this goal? What must Nigeria do to accelerate progress, especially in line with the call by Nigeria's First Lady, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, to step up the fight against TB? On Health Options this week, we take a closer look at treatments, patient support, and the persistent issue of stigma. I am Salwa Khalil Ibrahim. Thanks for joining me on the program. Stay with me also for Nature's Corner later in the show, where we explore the healing power of nature. Let's start by unpacking what prolonged coughing could mean. A medical diagnosis will often reveal the presence of TB-causing bacteria. As First Lady Oluremi Tinubu and other top TB champions remind us, TB anywhere is TB everywhere. Although TB is curable, challenges remain. Access to treatment and stigma continues to hinder the progress. This week, we join the advocacy to explore solutions, and I will be speaking with an expert in just a moment. Joining me in the studio is Dr. Obioma Chijioke Akaniro, Monitoring and Evaluation Manager at the National Tuberculosis Programme. Many thanks for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much.
Now, let's start with the basics. How is TB contracted, and what does the disease burden look like in Nigeria?
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me. First of all, Nigeria is known to be a high burden country. We are one of the high burden countries. There are about 30 of them. And we're known to be high burden for TB, for TB HIV, and for drug-resistant TB. In Nigeria, for 2024, we have over 500,000 people that develop TB in Nigeria. And our mandate is to find everyone and place on treatment. Well, of course, you know what it takes to find that number of people wallowing within more than 200 million Nigerians. It takes a whole lot. And that's why we put in all our efforts to ensure that we roll out different innovations to identify these people and to put on treatment. Of course, TB is an infectious disease caused by a germ, and it's airborne. It can transmit airborne from one person to another. Once someone has the disease, the person can transmit it while coughing, singing, talking, and most often, person transmits it to the close contacts, people who spend a lot of time with the index case. So it's because it's airborne, that's why you hear the adage that says TB anywhere is TB everywhere.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, based on the statistics you just mentioned, are infection rates rising or declining?
That's a subtle question to answer in the country now, because The metrics to pinpoint exactly if it's rising or if it's decreasing.
Let's say maybe compared to past years.
It's important to know that for over 2 decades, we were not able to find a lot of our patients to place on treatment. And that was a lot bordered around due to lack of either resources, the equipment we need, like the diagnostic capacity we require to be able to diagnose millions of presumptive, out of which we should get the cases. So there are a lot of factors that played a role. But in the past 5 years, we have so improved with a lot of technology coming up, some resources coming into the program, innovations coming into the program. We've improved in the treatment coverage of our patients or those we are finding and placing on treatment. And in 2023, we diagnosed about 74%. You compare it to what we had those years, you see that it's a lot of effort. And in 2024, we even went beyond 74%. So if we can maintain this achievement for the next 5-6 years, then we can talk about, yes, it's possible it's decreasing, because now we've been able to improve in the number of people we identify. So this is the assumption we work with in terms of how do you think we have done in terms of reducing either the incidence or the prevalence of this disease in the country.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that identifying patients to diagnose is also a challenge. Now, aside from persistent coughing that we all see, sometimes someone might be coughing, will tell you he has cough and catarrh for 1 week. Now, what are the other symptoms? And now, how do you differentiate between, normal cough and catarrh and then someone that has TB?
Okay, so we have classical symptoms. We say if someone has coughed for 2 weeks or more, it may be TB. So that's a classical symptom. Once you have that persistent cough, we advise that you take up the test. There are other symptoms, things like weight loss, unexplained weight loss. The person might be running some low-grade fever, night sweat, coughing with chest pain, coughing out blood. There are other symptoms that can also accompany, either they accompany or they may just be there on their own, like lone symptoms. So for those other symptoms, we try to do like combination before the person is seen as a presumptive. But once you have cough of 2 weeks or more, that's classical. We sure will tell you, please, you need to go on for a test.
Okay. Now, stigma still remains a major issue. Now, how much of a barrier is it today?
The story of stigma, we can't really tell it enough. It's one big barrier that we have. And, when you classify a barrier, you talk about access and all that, it's really one of the great barriers we have, especially because TB, the way people see tuberculosis. But I just want to pass this message that the TB patient is safer than the TB patient you don't know. So if the person has TB and is hiding because he feels that he's going to be stigmatized, the people around that person, you're up to even get it. But when someone is identified to have TB, it's easier because once the person starts treatment, we say 14 days on treatment, the person can transmit. And that's why we say don't stigmatize so that people don't hide it, because it's safer for us when we find them and place them on treatment. For the stigma assessment we had in 2017, we identified that 53% of our patients report that they are stigmatized within the community. And if you come break down the stigma, you even come down to stigma within the family, among siblings, being segregated from family, they are giving plate cups, separated in another place, trying to alienate the person. And when you start putting in this social alienation, it becomes a problem because you can even put the person on a wrong path where the person might not even be adherent to the drug. And if a person is not adherent to the drug because of all this, it can run into the person developing even more serious type of TB. We have the drug susceptible, which is the first line. We have the drug resistance, which is even a lot worse. So that's why we keep preaching. Just make things easy for the person. Once the person have taken the drug for 2 weeks, the person is no more transmitting. So what you do is that encourage so that this person can take this drug for 2 weeks. And I just want someone to buttress that even among the facilities, the healthcare workers, 25% of our patients report that they are being stigmatized within the health facilities. So imagine the health facilities where you should run to and even have some kind of solace. These are people who should understand what you're going through, and you feel stigmatized within there. Then the same way in the family, and it's really not nice. And that is one of the things that is preventing some people with symptoms from seeking care. And that's why stigma is something we need to take by the bullhorn. We really need to crash down stigma.
Okay. Yeah. Now, we'll talk about support for patients, but let's take a breather now. We'll be back shortly. Stay with us.
Thank you.
Kuka that's the name in Hausa.
That is call it Ose.
In Yoruba.
Ose, Igi Ose.
Okay, so I know it's Kuka.
I am delighted to have you join us on Health Options, the program that not only tracks government policies on health.
The total cholesterol is made up of some components. The high density lipoprotein, which is the good cholesterol, the low density hypoprotein, which is the bad.
Cervical cancer, a type of cancer that develops in a woman's cervix.
There were opportunities for women to get screened for both cervical and breast cancer, maybe up to 30,000, but we'll be having figures of 5,000.
Welcome back. If you are just tuning in, this is Health Options on the NTA, and we have been discussing effort to end TB in Nigeria with Dr. Obioma Chijioke Akaniro. Many thanks for being there, Doctor.
Thank you.
Okay, now we know TB is curable. Now, what are the most effective treatment options?
Okay, for TB, we really don't talk about treatment option because we have one line of treatment for different kind of TB. Because depending on the kind of TB, at the diagnosis, you will know what kind of TB. Is it drug-susceptible TB? We have the drugs, we have the regimen for it. So if you're placed on it, you just be adherent for the length of time you're supposed to take the drug. If it's 6 months, then you ensure that you're adherent for 6 months. If it's a drug-resistant TB, depending on the kind of resistance or the mutation that's happened on the line, you will be placed on the second-line therapy. That's what we call the second-line therapy. And amidst the second-line therapy, we have different regimen depending on the resistance that you have. So the resistance will determine the cocktail of therapy or the medicines that we put together for you. And whichever is put together for you is based on your own characteristics. It's for you to be compliant, to be adherent, and stick to the regimen. So it's not about the one that is effective, it's about the one that the patient should be placed on based on the characteristics of the diagnosis. So for Nigeria, I must tell you that I'm really proud of what this country has done. We are very willing and fast to take up new innovation, take up newest model, shorter regimen. I believe there was a time we were treating some drug-resistant patients for 24 months. 24 months. In fact, there was a time they will have to take injections every day for like 8 months. But you can imagine how rapidly we are going with the trend that even now the drug-resistant TB have come up to 6 months, just like the drug-susceptible TB, with newer regimen. And among that 6 months, we've been able to totally take off those painful injections. And the patients are now taking all oral regimen. So we are adapting and trying as much as possible to follow the newer trend that will make it patient-centered. Our goal is to ensure that our patients are well taken care of, and we come up from the point that is comfortable for them. That's why the treatment, how we ensure that the treatment is deployed, how we ensure that the diagnosis is done, we ensure that these patients have the best.
Okay. Now, government facilities now offer free TB treatment, right? But how accessible is it, and what happens when access is limited?
Okay, in terms of access, I know when we talk about the health sector, there's a lot of things competing for the person in the health sector. So what we try to do is, within what we have, what do we do to ensure we stretch this to get the best out of it? We try to expand to a lot of facilities in the country. Presently, we have about 60% of the health facilities in this country that provides TB diagnosis, treatment for patients. And by that, we're improving to ensure we get closer to the community as much as possible. We expand as much as we get resources. Between 2024 and now, we have expanded to extra 3,000 facilities extra. So this is getting closer to the community. But we still have some communities that we don't have this treatment. So what we do as a program, our innovative approach is, how do we break the access barrier for this community? And you know, access is not just by that location of saying, oh, we bring it close to you, but financial access too, for them to be able to access even if they don't have funds to get to the facilities. So we have been able to deploy our services closer to homes so that we can screen a lot more people. When these test results come out, and you know, those who are now patients, you now start getting them to be placed on treatment. So you will see by that we've broken the access barrier by ensuring we take services as they are at their doorstep. So if you ask me the story of how we went from less than 30% to about 74% treatment coverage, I will tell you all these innovations are all woven inside it. And there's a lot more that we are doing.
Well done,
Yes.
well done. Now, generally now, is Nigeria doing enough to meet the 2030 TB elimination target? And now, I want to put a two-in-one question. And with the cut in foreign aid now, how could this affect our progress? Or do you think that will affect our progress, rather?
Okay, so from what we are doing now, if the results we have now, if we started having it decades ago, I would have told you that I'm so confident that 2030 will be there. But like I said before, we had some drawbacks, but we picked up a lot in these last 5 years, and we have improved so much. What we register now, if we register it in the next 5-6 years, I'll tell you that we'll be on a roller coaster. If all things continue the way it is, we will likely make that indicator. And it's one of the things that we're discussing with our stakeholders. We say, this is the step to go. If we can meet one, we can meet all three. So
certainly,
let's
definitely,
just
we hope
go
so.
On like that.
Okay. Now, finally, what are some of the biggest misconceptions about TB, and how will you correct them?
There are a lot of them.
The most popular you've heard?
I've heard things like it's a curse, you know, must have done something, just a lot of them. TB is curable, it's infectious, it's airborne, and there are risk factors. PLHIV, people living with HIV because they're immunosuppressed, they can easily catch it. And that's why for PLHIVs, we say any cough, if a PLHIV coughs one, we will advise, please go for TB test. So those diseases with low immunity, diabetes and all that, they tend to catch it faster because it's airborne and it thrives in low immunity. And that's why someone might be infected but will not develop the disease. And that's why you see, when I introduced at the beginning, I said about 500,000 people develop the disease. There's a difference between developing and there's a difference with being infected. A person can be infected and does not develop because person has very good immunity, the immune is up, you know, can just inactivate and moves on with their life. But when someone starts having immunocompromised state, undernutrition, not eating well, someone PLHIV and all those, TB will thrive in those and just come up, show its optimum power at that moment. So there's a lot of things that needs to be demystified. But if you download One Impact, you can just enter that platform and see how we are disseminating information.
Okay, Dr. Obioma Chijuki Akaniru, thank you for your time and your insights.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Now that we have heard from a medical expert, what about the alternative healing remedies found in nature? Let's head to Nature's Corner to explore the healing power of natural medicine.
When you we're talking about hydrotherapy, you're looking at it in a more confined way. Take for example, this is a form of, hydrotherapy devised and presented by way of hydrogen water bottle. You see this bottle, it is actually generating, hydrogen. That once you are drinking this water, you are taking, hydrogen. The water is also, as it's being generated, it's also converted to what you call structured water. Structured water is the shape and form of water that the body cells will absorb easily. So we say that the structure of water is hydrophobic and hexagonal. And with that kind of structure, once you take it, the body cells absorb it quickly. You can see I take almost about 6 to 8 of this in a day. And the 6 to 8 gives you about up to 3 liters. Up to 3 liters. Ideally, we are recommended to take up to 2 to 3 liters. But if you are not taking a structured water that is also has been changed in the form with hydrogen, you notice that when you take water, your stomach is kind of heavy. You wouldn't expel it, as quickly as you should. But because this water is actually structured and is hydrogenated and it is alkaline, with this, once you take it, it absorbs faster in your body. So it helps with detoxification. It is also anti-inflammatory, and most importantly, it helps with production of energy, because hydrogen, being the smallest molecule that you can find, gets into the cell and goes to the part of the cell known as the mitochondria that is responsible for production of energy. So when you take this, you see that your energy level gets boosted, your clarity of thought gets boosted. You are able to excrete, filter. The kidneys are able to filter this water faster than the ordinary water that is, not really structured or hydrogenated. What we consider as healthy water must have 3 properties. What is quality water to me? Must be structured, which I had explained. Must be alkaline, which I had explained the importance, because our body operates best in an alkaline environment. That is to say that the pH must be not greater than 7.4. But most of this water you take, they're actually acidic. Then the third component that makes up quality and healthy water is what we call nano-pure. That water must be free of microbes. It must be free. So you see, that's why it is not just any water you want to take. Look at the purification process. So most of these water plants these days, that they must be using ozone. Ozone is that a product that kind of purifies the water. It kills all the bacteria, it attenuates all the viruses, and any microbes that ozone comes in contact with, it will kill it. So your good water must be structured, it must be alkaline, it must also be ozonated.
Time flies when the conversation is engaging, right? But the only way to catch time is to use it wisely. And when it comes to TB, doing the right thing can save lives. Yes, we can end TB with the right strategies, resources, and commitment. It can be prevented, treated, and controlled. Remember, you can watch this episode and past editions on YouTube at NTA Networks. Would love to hear from you. Your comments, questions, and suggestions matter to us. Until next time, next week, I am Salwa Kalal Ibrahim. Goodbye.